Well, here we are, a special, weird setting here, kind of funky white balance, but we are here live in Las Vegas. Lots of time to get set up for Andy and I's show today. It ended up being I'm scrambling down. I had to get some water here, and I got a beer. Andy's going to catch me before the hangover here in Vegas for a change. But let's bring in Andrew Murray. We can talk through everything. First of all, Andy, how are you doing?
Great. I'm happy to see you on a Sunday, sir, and I'm glad you managed to get in just in the nick of time.
Yeah, I've got the I should put the photo up. I've got the my light here from the room, and we got this awesome backdrop. You can see like the stratosphere there in the distance. Not a bad setting here. The stratosphere is there. The sphere made it in. What? Yeah, John here, John Lewis. Guns. I didn't have time to find a shirt. I ran downstairs to get some deodorant. Came back up. Watch the games today. Exciting. Lots to get to yesterday as well. We had another doubleheader and kind of all that stuff. This table is going to kind of move as I type here, but Andy, have we recovered from the Rick Saratella of it all? If anyone has missed, I don't know how you could have missed the episode. Our episode Friday, I knew it would be controversial. We lost some subscribers. We gained some subscribers. I think we're net up overall, but fiery episode with Rick. Abdul checking in here. Face of the UFL, Andy Murray. Andy, have we recovered from Rick Saratella?
I mean, I thought I was the poison in the well last week, and apparently Rick was the sucker punch. I'm just kind of enamored in what he had to say and sort of what he had to say and how he said it. He had a lot to say, but I mean, your episode overall had a lot of really interesting casts. I know Rick was going to get obviously the most attention, especially considering that now he's officially somebody that works in the CFL. So that was going to be something of a point of contention in terms of perspective. But Rick has been all over the place, and he's been in multiple leagues and multiple settings. He's a great scout. I really don't have any problems as far as I know Rick is a really good guy, and I think I respect his opinion. I knew it was going to draw the ire of a lot of people. So hopefully people have had a couple of weeks or a couple of days, I should say, to cool down from that whole experience.
Yeah, if you missed that, Rick, formerly with the IFA, he's now with the CFL. He's a football scout. Lots of good, just quality feedback, I think, for the league. Rick kind of pitched it as a free kind of marketing session on that. So if you missed that, but to set the stage here, Sunday night, we normally do this either Monday or Tuesday. We have attendance today. We don't have TV ratings, which obviously come out Tuesday. I'm here in Vegas. I'll be filming, I think tomorrow, like 7 to 9, both Monday and Tuesday, all day. So it just wasn't feasible. So appreciate Andrew, Andy making time here, the face of the UFL coming on and doing all of that. I think let's first, Jen is checking in. We got everyone checking this in. Yeah, everyone's excited. Sunday night here. This is good. Philip checking in and Act My Age. Let's talk attendance first. I have some thoughts about that, and then we'll get into the games. I saw a lot more of the games today on the flight than I did the games yesterday. We were working and then get ready for the Mariners game. So Andy can fill us in, but have enough to talk about with all of that. Let's put this up first. Attendance came out via Mike Mitchell today. Official attendance numbers, Arlington, the Saturday game, 10,283. Good to see a little bit of a bounce back there. Houston here, a little scary. The 6,285. DC today, I thought a really good crowd. I even had a text from Sam Schwartzstein saying, is that true? I said, yeah, I mean, it looks pretty full to me. And then Memphis with 7,600 on that. We have Abdul here. I want to do his a little more context on that, but thoughts about that, Andy, while we get to that.
Yeah, for Arlington, I mean, at least they were able to recuperate some of their losses from the last time that they hosted a home game against the DC Defenders. So you have a few more people there. But, I mean, overall, this is an audience that is going to be witnessing a product that is not going to be sustainable or satisfying enough because they're an 0-5 team. So we'll see if the record plays into them in terms of how much attendance they have the remainder of the season. They have 2 more home games. So we'll see if that is able to maintain at that 10,000 people floor. For Houston, I mean, it was sort of ominous. Started putting out tweets about, let's try and get it to 10,000. And I'm thinking 10,000 is like the bare minimum for some of these teams. And there's already a squad that's saying that 10,000 is a goal. That's a bit frightening just to be quite frank. And look, again, I know it's Rice Stadium. I know it's not the formal stadium that they're going to be in when they eventually go back to the University of Houston and they finally get done with the renovations, but still, not extremely enviable. And I don't think this is something that they can really rest their laurels on or really be okay with going forward, because 6,000 and declining is scary time numbers. I mean, we're talking about Vegas Viper attendance numbers from last year. You're talking about some of the lower end spring teams, maybe in the AAF. I mean, this is a crowd number that needs to be boosted. DC, I'm not surprised by. DC is fantastic. They've done their job. They're great. The Audi Field is just ruckus. Even though that we saw some history today, I think that the audience is still going to be always remaining strong. I think they've built a good enough brand. See, again, what I was saying last week, they've built a brand. You know what they're about. I think everybody that watches spring football or is not as super familiar with it know that this is one of the best atmospheres in spring football and has been for quite some time. And then going to Memphis, I mean, that's sort of where they've been at this season. They're sort of the same base mark for them. So, I mean, that number that we've been seeing overall, as far as the USFL attendance is not averaging nearly as much as the XFL attendances, even with St. Louis being taken out, is still very much prevalent.
Yeah, and I have those numbers here to talk through as well. Let me know. My internet should be good. If I disappear, just talk for a second, I'll come back. But it seems like it's pretty decent. Forgot to mention off the top as well. The plan is getting Mike Mitchell on this next week. We're at the halfway point of the season. We'll do kind of a welfare check. I might try to see if the Tim Cappers of the world can come on. There's a little bit of arena football news coming on as well. We might talk to, but because I want to hear Mike's thoughts about this. I know he said preseason and during the season, kind of 10,000 is kind of the kind of the bare minimum we want to hit with all that. So I want to get Mike on for all of that stuff. I really co-sign here what Jacob is saying with this. And this is what hurts the most about the Houston of it, because Houston was kind of like the tent pole franchise of the XFL 2020, especially. And then, the XFL 2023, like, had the success in there. Now, you didn't have quite the hysteria with the PJ Walker, and to see this now come down, is really sad to me. I know Philip is, is kind of co-signing that, but it's hard to see where it's like, not only have we lost maybe what could have been a good XFL, like it's almost like the USFL poisoned kind of that market side of it, right? And this like, well, we got to keep the whatever. I know we had Paul Reitz on 2 weeks ago talking about this, where, is the USFL carrying its weight? And I mean, in this regard, it's almost dragging down that market. Because I think if it was the Houston Roughnecks, with Wade Phillips and never mind what you would have with San Antonio with that and what that team would look like. But if you had that team there, I think they would be bolstered up by that. And I think it's almost now it's a double do. It hurts anyway. And then like the USFL is kind of dragging it down. It really is not a good look.
I think they've just lost their identity completely. Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, you've taken their coaches, you moved them to a different city. You've taken their brand, which I know it's the Roughnecks, but really it's the Gamblers in disguise. That's really what it is. So you've changed their identity as far as the team and as far as what their familiarity is with the market. And then obviously moving stadiums. So there's a lot of loss in translation collateral damage here. But most significantly, again, is the fact that I don't know who this team is. I mean, this team is not playing well, but also I don't know what this team is about. 2020, high-flying offense. They start 5-0. And then last year, they're 7-3. They're, again, pretty good efficiently on offense. They've got a good defense. Wade Phillips has a calling card. He has familiarity with the Houston market. Obviously, he's been in it for many, 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 many years, including with his father, Bum Phillips. And so that familiarity is kind of gone. And with that goes any sort of familiarity with the fans. And I just don't understand what the strategy was here in terms of also taking the team and literally changing conferences, going from the XFL to the USFL. I mean, it just feels wrong watching them and thinking this is not a USFL team. But I'll say this, and this is going to probably ruffle some feathers. They play like a USFL team in the hub. That's what it feels like. Like there's this sort of homogenous, almost this like homogenous feeling, sort of, in my opinion, just from my opinion, between a team like Memphis, Houston, and Michigan, where it's just this sort of glob of like, I know you have talented players, I know you have good players, I know there are good coaches that are on these staffs, but I don't really know what your identity is as a team. Michigan is starting to figure it out as far as being a defensive-minded team, but again, Houston, I have no idea what they are. Memphis is just a mess. I really don't know. Birmingham is the one that has the clear identity out of all of them. It is by far the most successful team out of all of them. And I think there's a reason for that. So for Houston, it's just more, it's brand confusion, and it's the fact that I don't really know what they are as a team that I think plays into this quite a bit.
I want to do a little bit more attendance here, but for Houston in general, is this a personnel? I mean, is it a player issue? Is it a Curtis Johnson issue? Because, I mean, the Gamblers weren't great last year, right? And we've had all this mixed match, but what is it about this team that is just so miserable to watch?
I mean, it's quarterback play, and I don't think Reid Sinet's necessarily a problem. I just don't think he's really going to be the solution. Defensively, I mean, this team is completely fallen apart. They just do not have the same juice that they had last year. You don't have a Trent Harris. You don't have a Genie Harris. You don't have these cornerbacks who are picking off passes, and you don't have this premier pass rush anymore. You're getting run over by teams. I mean, Michigan ran them over. Obviously, Birmingham just has way too much talent offensively for them to handle. I know they won that game against Arlington, but really I thought that was more about Arlington shooting themselves in the foot. I don't know what they really do, quite frankly. Like, I just don't really know what they're about. The Gamblers at times, I thought, just suffered from horrible inconsistencies offensively, but had good defensive players. And last year they were much closer to getting to the playoffs than they were this year. But now I just don't really know what they have. It's both sides of the ball that are just completely unwatchable. I don't really know a player that you can really stick to most of the time. There's just, again, not really a lot of identity. Mark Thompson is supposedly your star player, and he's just now played his first game, and I don't think he really made much of an impact. So I don't really know what you hang your hat on if you're Houston.
If you're tuning in here, checking us out for the first time, because we're not normally live here on Sunday, just remember we like and subscribe, get us up to 3,500 subscribers. Like I said, had to hit a little back and forth there with the Rick Saratellas of it, but you could sit with Andrew Murray at the championship game, 2 free tickets. Guess we have like 50. We need like 50 people. I'm so tired of talking about this. So just like and subscribe on that. Michael Payne checking in. Yes, having a little PBR here. Just got into Vegas, so enjoying that. And we're going to go. I think I'm going to go to Yard House after this. I think that's the plan. But speaking of, we had this, Abdul posted a couple weeks ago about this, and we talked, I think, with our show last week. But to kind of put this into context here, so the UFL average overall 12,570 fans, right? And we'll get into the games here. I have a lot of thoughts about the USFL conference as a whole, but just to put a pin in this, XFL conference average 17,000, XFL conference even without St. Louis 12,500, USFL conference 8,200. So I think we're seeing there, and we've talked about this kind of the dragging down effect of that. XFL continuing that. To reiterate before, no surprise that it was the 2020 franchises that are kind of carrying that. I did want to point out, and then we'll go back to Andy. Yeah, John, rain, man, it's rain. And I think the car wash was having to buy 2, get 1 free sale down the road. And I think, Celine Dion was playing 2 counties over. And yeah, it's a lot. It was rainy. It was beautiful in Arlington, though. I think Anthony was reporting. Anything else on that before we move on to the games?
I mean, yeah, weather will be somewhat of a factor depending on where you are. If it's thunder lightning, that's something you can't avoid. With that Birmingham situation, if you know it's coming, then you're probably not going to show up to the game. But as far as rain goes, I mean, it really depends. Some fans are okay with it, and other fans aren't. But I just don't think that can be really the crux of why you're not drawing fans. When it's perfectly fine outside and it's beautiful, there's the same number of people. So where are we getting at here? That's kind of my question.
Well, I think John, to be fair, John's being a little facetious, but I want to continue.
I'm sure he is. And that's the thing, by the way, if you're having a car wash on a rainy day, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what your priorities are, but that's
why it was a sale. That's why it was we got to get in there.
That's why they're having the sale. Okay. But it just goes to show that, look, I've read a litany of excuses online, and some of them are probably valid, and some of them I sort of raise my eyebrow at. But again, it really depends on how much the fans are willing to go through with it. And DC, look, the DC Defenders had some games last year because they had the calendar pushback where it wasn't super nice to go to DC games, where it was cold or it was rainy or it was just kind of nasty. And, fans, not as many fans want to show up. So, of course, a healthy amount did, but not nearly the same attendance numbers that they have had the last 2 weeks or the last 2 times they played at home, because, now it feels like it's spring in DC. So, that's also part of the calendar thing. Again, going back and forth of when is it too hot? When is it too cold? When is it just right? The Goldilocks syndrome. When are we going to have the magical porridge that comes all together and is able to make this fine for everybody to attend a game. And I don't think that really exists, but you can try and thread the needle as much as you want. I just don't know what other factors there could be with Memphis, because we've been told that Memphis is a good market. And I'm sure that there are people who want to support football in Memphis, but it just hasn't come together yet. There's just not been that same flair. And I don't know if it's, again, brand identity. Is it people not knowing that this team exists? Is it people choosing to do chores rather than going to a game? I don't know.
It's really hard because it's like the Goldilocks, because okay, if it's too nice outside, people don't want to go to the Dome in St. Louis. If it's too cold, like it really, like, I'm so sick of it. And it's every week, and you get the tweet, and I got a lot of flack for my tweet. I guess it was earlier this week, but St. Louis had like a blowout game, like 14-1, and there was nobody there. And I'm like, oh, this is the same team that is, supposedly drawing all these people away from because the Battlehawks have gone down week over week. The opening weekend, they had 40,000, whatever. And then last weekend they had 31. It was about a 10,000 decline. I go, this is the same. Like, you can't have it every way. Like, well, okay, we did really good against whatever, and then I'm tuning in the highlight, and I understand it's a blowout game on the week. Like, I understand the context of that, but it's you don't get it all the same ways. You don't get, this is responsible for drawing away this way. But then when I point out there's only 6,000 people at the game the other night, it's like, oh, well, see, that doesn't really matter. Like, there's always going to be some excuse. There's always going to be some reason about it. But I don't know. I think Rick pointed out a lot of things on the interview this week where, there's a lot of lack of marketing. I know that there's been conversations in our group chat with certain people talking to team social members about, like, hey, maybe marketing isn't up to staff this time. So something's going on. XFL continues to carry the attendance, at least that way. I think it would be pretty grim right now if it was still the USFL conferences.
Yeah, no, I agree. It would not be something that maybe even they would report on if it was just the USFL, to be quite honest. And I see why, because they're not the biggest numbers on the planet. And who knows what the numbers were last year? Obviously, we'll never know, but only maybe certain few know what the numbers really were last year in those hubs. But for now, I mean, this just kind of shows me that it's a carryover effect of the hub model, where there was a lot of attention put into, well, let's just slowly get the teams out into their cities, which in theory worked, and then able to get some sort of local notoriety and able to get people into the stadium, which again, in theory worked, but not to the level that I think people who watch TV and watch games on TV expect. That's the thing. It's a TV product. And I need people to stop pretending like it's not a TV product, because that's the whole point of it. That's what they're trying to sell to their audience. It's not just people who show up in the stadiums. If people show up in the stands, it looks great, awesome, fantastic. You need both. You need to have people who show up, are able to talk about it, are able to be part of the atmosphere, but then also advertise that to your television audience, saying, look, all these people are here and checking this out and watching this and are really excited about this. You need to sell that to your audience. And if it's not there, if the energy is not there, it's just harder. It's a harder sell.
It's really harder to sell. And I talked with Rick about it too. Like, it kind of makes you feel like a loser. You're sitting there. You're like, there's 6,000 people here. Like, we're in the rain in Memphis. Like, our team plays like crap. Like, I kind of felt like a loser watching this. Like, I think that it's all intangibles of it. Again, what I always get back to, and I'll just to flip over to this again, and then we'll move on because I want to talk about the games. Like, what person is buying a Memphis franchise that is drawing 7,600 people? Like, that's not like that. That is, if that is the long-term goal, that we are selling these markets, I don't care about anything else. That is what needs to be. So that's kind of where I'm at. I want to make sure we get Gemini here. We got a super chat from them. League needs to spend money and advertise if they want fans, period. Yes. And I do not think that they are doing that. Let's go on. We can do any other questions about any attendance stuff at the end. Andy, here's a question. I'm going to get this screen share up here. We talked about this in the group chat. The USFL conference is horrendous. Why?
It's bad. I'll tell you why. It's because Birmingham has a fantastic GM who is stockpiling this team with talent. They have a great coach in Skip Holtz. They have a way of just sort of understanding what they're trying to get out of their team. And that's even with them platooning a quarterback with Matt Corral and Adrian Martinez. Even with that dynamic, they're still undefeated. And now this week they finally play Adrian Martinez and they just run away with the competition. But this has been going on for 3 years. I mean, they've lost 3 games total in the last 3 years. And it's crazy. That means it's crazy, right? I mean, it should not be that much parity. The XFL, we've seen parity. We've seen teams take shots, or even the good teams or the teams that we think are the best get knocked down at some point. And I mean, that happened to DC last year. They lost a bizarre game to the Orlando Guardians. Their only win the entire season came against DC, which was just the weirdest thing ever, but it happened. And then they lost the championship game to an Arlington team that was below 500. So, I mean, we've seen more parity in the XFL compared to the USFL. And I think it tells me that their staff is just so much more cohesive and so much more put together than any other team here. And like, even if like the New Orleans Breakers stayed around, I don't even think they'd be catching up to them either. Sorry. Like they wouldn't have stayed in this fight either. And I just don't really know why other teams have not really been able to pull their weight, other than talent evaluation or coaching or knowing exactly what they're getting from it. But Birmingham is just running circles around everybody. They whether it's running backs, whether it's defense, whether it's whatever quarterback they put in there. I mean, they've basically, if they win this year, they're going to win with 3 different combinations of quarterbacks at this point, and it's kind of ridiculous.
Well, here you go. So Jaboni here, 60. How is the USFL conference horrendous? The XFL has a winless team, and the defenders get blown out. Am I wrong in that? I mean, is it just wrong? Maybe it's just my bias. It feels like when you look at the standings, I will correlate there. But we have 2 teams with 1 win on here. There's 2 teams with 1 win outlay, 1 team with 0 wins. I don't know. To me, it just feels like the USFL. At least there's a little bit of action here in the XFL conference. I feel like it's going to be Michigan in here Birmingham by default, and it's probably going to be Michigan unless Memphis gets their stuff together. But you got Case Cookis, so you're dealing with that, and we can talk about all that today. And the other guy playing, and Houston, we've already talked to the Chris Johnson. I mean, am I wrong in that, of viewing the XFL as a stronger conference? I thought the whole point of moving we're combining all these teams was to get better talent, right? And now a lot of these teams just don't look very good.
I mean, to me, there's more of a question as to who can win on a game-by-game basis in the XFL. I mean, I know the Brahmas are leading the division right now, but I don't know if they ultimately will by the end of the season. It might be the Battlehawks. I don't know. The playoff spots are completely solid. I mean, DC's not looking good. Could they still make a comeback? Sure. But I still don't know, in between the Battlehawks and the Brahmas, which one's going to win the conference. With the USFL, I mean, there's no question. I mean, the Stallions should be favored by double digits against every one of these teams on any given day. And it doesn't really matter. I think Birmingham could easily run the table against this entire conference. Now, they do have to play some XFL teams, so that's going to maybe stymie their mission a little bit. That the big one coming up in 2 weeks is going to be the Battlehawks going to Birmingham. That's going to be a humongous matchup. So we'll find out then. But as far as in the conference itself, I just give absolutely no chance to any of these other teams, because I've seen it. I've seen it in the last 3 years. They just can't keep up. They've fallen flat, and Birmingham just has all the answers. They push all the right buttons, and we'll see if they can push those buttons against all the XFL teams. They obviously had a fantastic showcase against Arlington, the opening game, but now that we've obviously seen that Arlington is the worst team in the XFL and potentially the worst team in the entire conference. But even then, I know they just lost to them, but I still would rather watch and take the Renegades over the Roughnecks. And I know that's extremely controversial. I know, but I just do not like any of the teams in the USFL conference outside of Birmingham.
Jacob has a question. Is it possible for DC to take the second USFL spot? No, because I'm Coach Beck to put on the thing. Hey, oh yeah, they're changing the playoff rule this year, because remember he was all poo-poo about them missing the, hey, win at home, win against the Sea Dragons, and you're in. It's not. It's the top 2 in each conference. That's why we're going to have XFL versus USFL. I don't know. Like I said, cancel the season. Let's move to June here. I mean, it's going to be Battlehawks against. Well, and I don't know. I mean, even the Brahmas have the conference lead right now, but it really feels like it's going to be the Battlehawks versus the Stallions. It feels like they're coming up.
Well, we'll see. This Brahmas team, I think, is going to could be the monkey wrench in the operation. Again, I'm sure the league is begging and pleading and praying that the Battlehawks host the championship game and host the Stallions. They would love nothing more than that. But I think as far as offense goes, I mean, yes, this Battlehawks team looks really scary. They have the entire arsenal, the entire complement of weapons that they need around AJ McCarron to make everything work out. I mean, in my opinion, they've come off back-to-back weeks where they should have scored 50 points both weeks, which is insane to say, but that really is a mark that they should have accomplished the last 2 weeks. and kind of got in their own way. So for the USFL, I just don't really see it. It's not really home field advantage that really matters. I just think Birmingham can play anywhere, anytime. They can play on the road. They have the right game, the right team to play on the road, and even better on the road than at home, to be honest.
Yeah. All right, let's get in here. Let's get into the games. Speaking of that, right, the last one, I got these all in order here. Last one, Michigan versus Memphis here. Yeah, watch. It got a little close there. I was watching and I about turned it off. I was on the plane and the Mariners were getting ready to come on. And I said, well, this is about Memphis made a little bit. I know they had that turnover and stuff, but it really didn't look to even be in the same place here as Michigan. What did you make of this?
Weird game. Just a really weird game. I mean, Michigan goes up 19-0. They decide not to go for a short field goal and by foregoing it at the end of the first half, they give up an 82-yard touchdown pass to Davion Davis, which Mike, and I'll say this, and I don't want to speak too much for Mike, but he was going on about how Joel Klatt was just flaming Mike Nolan for it, and rightfully so. I mean, it was just an error decision. That's the thing. That's what I'm talking about with some of these USFL teams. I just don't see these correct decisions being made by the coaching staffs or the head coaches in comparison to Skip Holtz, who has pulled all the right levers. But regardless, West Hills looked great. The Michigan Panthers got a win. Danny Etling did enough in place of EJ Perry. And this team, I think, is probably the second most well-formed team in the USFL. They should probably be the second seed just based on how they played so far. As far as Memphis goes, I mean, man, their offensive line is just it's a collapsing wall every time they play. It really is a detriment to the quarterbacks. Case Cook is obviously getting hurt playing behind it. Troy Williams running for his life. And Troy Williams threw 3 touchdowns. Good for him, but 2 interceptions as well. The guy that I really just love to highlight here in this game, and really just for the team in general, is Kai Nakua. He's been outstanding as the safety for Michigan. He's awesome. He's been everywhere. Love the way he plays the game. And I love that he's just been so rangy and just been able to cover all of his bases. He's made some tremendous turnovers this season, and I really like his game a lot. But this Michigan team, I think, is solid. I have no doubt that they should be the second seed. I just don't know how they measure up against Birmingham. And, they played Birmingham to a 7-point game, but that was when Birmingham was still platooning quarterbacks. If they're playing Adrian Martinez, are we going to get the same result? We'll see.
I want to say, too, and speaking of the Joe Klatt kind of hammering on, I like his going back to the conversation again with Rick last week and talking to a different broadcast. I like Joel, like, knowing kind of the history and even the fake pun and like, hey, they did this last week, and how do you not, like, it's the over. Like, so I like Joel talking about like football stuff, because I was on the plane and I just had it kind of on. It was easier just to listen to the game than it was to kind of have it on with just the Wi-Fi. And I thought, like, this is someone, even for just the most basic level of a Joel Klatt, even in the NFL draft week, right? Like, let's just put this in context. Like, he's coming off the NFL draft week, and then to be able to still kind of like have his research done to go into that, I thought was really good. I mean, I listened to Joel. He was on Brock and Salk here, or in Seattle, not here, but in Seattle this week. And I'm like, for him to be doing all that stuff, to pre-prep for the draft, and then still be able to come in and be prepared to do this USFL Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon game. Like, let's give a shout out for Joel Klatt. I thought that was good.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I couldn't even believe that I was seeing him on my TV and on NFL Network doing the draft coverage and thinking, you've got UFL games this weekend, buddy. And he's had 2 back-to-back days of UFL games. An incredible feat by him. He's just a machine. I appreciate his hard work, and I appreciate his acumen for not only the game, but the players individually. He knows these players. He knows these teams. They talk to these players and coaches. He does his homework. And also, I really like that he's not afraid to be critical of everybody involved here. He's really the poster child for a color commentator in this league. Kind of how Greg Olson was in XFL 2020 is just this great standard of being very professional, knowing what you're doing your homework, caring about the players and the coaches and the league. And, even if there's not a ton of history there, you can at least go off something as far as just the week before. I really, really appreciate that. And I love that. We need more of that. Honestly, we need more of that in this league. And I hope more of that comes. But, there's going to need to be more figures like Joel Klatt and some of the other broadcast booths.
I think there's also kind of an issue too, where especially in spring leagues, like we don't want to criticize because we don't want to make people look dumb. I don't know. I feel like sometimes like, well, it's spring football and like maybe we're still figuring out the rules. And like, when you had like Jim Zorn back in 2020 and going for the wrong, I think, went for 3 or whatever after the, all these and what's the score and what's going on? Like, I think we don't want to make them look dumb sometimes. So you don't criticize and you focus more like where you would maybe criticize in the Andy Reid, like, what are you doing there? Why would you like, I like that. Like, we're all big boys. Like, everyone's been around. Mike Nolan's been around the block. We can talk about all this stuff or whoever, Coach Flip. Like, I think we can. I think it's okay to do that. Jake Bates, not a great day. Bound to happen, right? Missed a couple, but I didn't like that where they're like, well, he made 64. Like, 58 is no. 58, you couldn't hit a 58-yard field goal, but it didn't end up mattering here. Michigan kind of really took care of business. Any other thoughts on this one? Really didn't seem close. I know Memphis got some points there at the end, but
it really wasn't. I mean, Michigan just had the game plan out for this Memphis team, and all they had to do was just rush the quarterback, and you could rush 4 and pretty much do whatever they needed to on defense. So yeah, just more so, I mean, you watch the Memphis games just to watch John DeFilippo's face turn into a strawberry because that man gets hot during games. He really does. So for me, that's pretty much the only interesting factor here with Memphis games. But as far as their competitive level, I'm about ready to just go ahead and stick a fork in them because I'm not really feeling them the rest of the season. If they keep having injuries at quarterback and if they keep playing like they do so inconsistently, I'm going to go back and say that San Antonio drive at the end of that game for them to pull that game out with Chase Garber's miracle, man, I think that broke this Memphis team because they have not been the same since.
The other thing, the Case Cookus, like he was okay to play, but they didn't want to play. I mean, were you okay with that? Kind of how they handled it? I mean, I want to keep Case safe here and I don't, just to get kind of thrown to the slaughter grid, but were you okay with them sitting him out?
No pun intended. I want to encase him in bubble wrap because that's all he is allowed to be in for the foreseeable future. Otherwise, he's going to break all the rest of his fingers and toes if he goes back in there.
All right, let's switch here over. So this was the big, right? This was, am I right on my, yes. Okay. So let me I got the right type here. I thought that this was going to be a little bit more. This was the big, DC's never lost to the Battlehawks, right? They've never lost at home. They did both today. This wasn't close. I mean, we had AJ McCarron resting at the end of the game. Like, this is what did you make of this? Because I mean, if you're, I sense some other YouTube personalities right now with the DC defenders showing.
This was a curb stomp, but honestly, St. Louis was letting DC stay in this game for longer than they absolutely deserved to. They went up on them in the first half. They were up 17-0. And then they kept kicking field goals, and it kind of became clear that they weren't really able to put DC away. It was 17-12 at half. Really, the most critical point, I think, is when Matt McCrane, friend of the show, Matt McCrane, unfortunately doinked a field goal off the upright. And from that point on, DC lost all the rest of its momentum. But really, DC just did not do the little things well. They got punts blocked. I mean, their special teams blocking on punts was terrible. They got absolutely bum rushed by the St. Louis defenders. George John was running for his life. He turns the ball over 3 times. I mean, he just having a rough go of it. They could not keep a sustainable run game. For the Battlehawks, I mean, you don't even have Darius Shepard. Ja'Cour Pearson's in and out of the lineup, and it just feels like they just have too much. I mean, Hakeem Butler was just a man, and he catches that 80-yard touchdown pass and runs away from the defender. I mean, it's like it was basically they were playing with their food today, I think is what the Battlehawks were doing. And they scored 45 points. Like I said, they should have scored 50 easily. This team has so much weaponry offensively. I love it. And for AJ McCarron, he just looks so calm and collected back there, even when things aren't going well. And mind you, St. Louis had injuries on the offensive line. They're getting banged up on their offensive line. They had a couple of shuffling points there, some guys coming in and out of the lineup. They need to make sure that's solidified if they really want to be in their serious contention spot going forward, and especially in 2 weeks when they face Birmingham. But so far, I mean, this Battlehawks team just they look like they made it this year. They were probably so miffed last year, being 7-3, scoring all those points and it not mattering in the end. I'm going to say it right now. I think AJ McCarron is your outright MVP. bar none. I think he's played well enough. He's playing an incredible offense. It may end up being best player on best team syndrome as far as the XFL goes. And everything's just sort of come together for the St. Louis team. And I think they can play better. Like I said, they haven't even played their A game, in my opinion, this entire season yet.
Yeah, to my chagrin here, I'm not the biggest Battlehawks guy. I just think it's a lot of this the same and caused a lot. But this is good. I'm glad they have a good team. I mean, they came in, they kicked the absolute snot out of DC here. We had a question earlier when we were going through attendance. Like, I mean, DC doesn't even really resemble the same team right now. And it was the sideline, these sideline reporters like, Coach Jordan Ta'amu is your highest rushing player right now. Like, is that your game plan going in, or would you like to get someone else going? They're like, yeah, we'd like to get someone else going here. Like, guys, can we you caught an interception? How did you do that? But I mean, Ta'amu running around, but they just couldn't get. I don't know. The fall off this year with DC is just incredible.
I mean, you don't have the XFL leading rusher, Abram Smith. That doesn't help. You don't have Derek King, who is really kind of that wild card that you could throw in at any moment and sort of mix up the game plan. No Lucky Jackson. I mean, there's a number of weapons that are just missing from last year. You can't throw to the same people, and you don't have the same proficiency of a run game. I mean, it's just they don't have the same calling cards as they did last season. They were able to put up points at nauseum last year. And also, again, their defense is falling apart. I mean, Greg Williams is just throwing whatever he can out there, and a lot of times it's not working. I mean, these seam routes are getting abused by these receivers. I cannot believe how easy some of these pitch and catches are coming, especially from St. Louis, who, again, I think was determined to do this. And let's say it right now. This is the first loss DC's ever sustained at home. This is history. Audi Field has finally fallen after many attempts by other teams. Finally, the other team got the best of them. And that's a tremendous feat. And for St. Louis to do it in such a way, I think speaks volumes to their team. But for DC, I mean, yeah, this isn't the same team. This is their first time being under 500 going into week 6 in their entire history. They were 3-2 the first time. Obviously, last year they started off odd. They were 5-0. But this time, it's just not the same team. And for them, there's a lot to figure out, but they got to figure it out quickly because they play San Antonio at home next week. And if they don't win that game, they will pretty much be done.
We got some starred comments coming in here. I want to make sure we get to. I don't think this is the Chad Johnson, but Chad Johnson has actually been on the show. We did have back on episode 2, I think it was. We had Chad just think actually on the Markcast if you want to blast from the past, but definitely not the same DC team from last year. Gemini here, I don't think the sideline reporting got any better this year. And and God bless him. I love, I love Cole and I love all these guys, but some of the time I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of Brock Heward or no one to me. And maybe that's just my Seattle bias and all of that stuff. Denzel here. Yeah. Is AJ McCarron the best player in the league? Yep. And then John Lewis here, who was at the Battlehawks game last week. Battlehawks didn't need to save any offense for next week since they play Houston. Hey, watch an upset. That would be cool. I would be excited to see that Houston come in and flip the table on Battlehawks.
Yeah. How the turntables have turned. But back into the ESPN broadcasting thing for a second. If I have to hear about the over-under or the spread one more time from this crew, and look, I understand sports betting is part of the zeitgeist. It's just part of the culture now. That's fine. But like you said, to your point, hearing them continue to pound it as far as this team needs to worry about losing by less. It's like, no, this team needs to worry about winning. I can't hear anymore about how they are feeling about covering the spread or not. They don't care. It doesn't matter. And the audience, not all the audience cares either. If you want to remind the audience about maybe some of your pre-bets, maybe in the third quarter or fourth quarter, fine. That's okay. If it's friendly competition between you and you want to remind the audience about that later on in the game, fine. But they just continually use it as a crutch. And it's a crutch that I think is easy to kick over because I don't think it's really that sustainable. I really wish that they had other talking points besides that. They got to go back into what's this player doing? Why isn't tell me why it's not working for DC this year? Why,
because they don't know, because that would take too much research. They don't know.
They got to do their research.
Watch the games.
Let's talk, why is Fred Keis's offense not working well? And I love that story they had about Keis. I mean, the thing that he survived in the middle of the season with obviously getting the cancer, detected early like that. That's an incredible story, but they didn't really do enough with that afterwards about talking about like the teams and what's going on and the chip on the shoulder that the St. Louis teams played, because like you said, there just would be a lot more research involved. I'm not saying they don't do their research, but they just rely on certain elements a little too much that I don't think are supposed to be the calling card for why this league wants to be successful.
It's like those progressive commercials where it's the kids that have now become their parents, and you don't need to print out the map to go to, you use your phone, but it's like that guy like, oh, I got the kids to become their parents. It's like that. It's like they have a call from on high. We need to talk about sports betting. We need to focus on that. I will tell you this. Only hardcore people are betting on this league. And those people don't need you reminding them the over is hit, the under is hit. I mean, these are the people that are gay. These are like the Cody Mains of the world, the Eric Eager when he was doing all. I mean, these are the people that know, like, they don't need you telling them that the over is going to be hit. They've got all. I mean, I'm not even the sports better to know all the vernacular to kind of get into that, but they don't need you telling them like the over is 5 points away. The people that are actually betting on this league, because spoiler alert, not a lot of people are betting on this league, but the people that are do not need anybody that is involved in the broadcast telling them what's going on, because they already know.
I mean, I have a comrade of mine who does bet regularly, and he always asks me like, okay, how are you feeling this weekend? I'm like, well, I know a guy who would probably be able to give you a lot of advice on that. And it's literally just Mike Mitchell writing his articles. Like, that's all it is. It's just, I read his article and I'm like, Mike's probably going to be right. And I just tell that to my friend. And I mean, by God, I was sitting here last week saying, oh, well, I think DC is going to be able to pull it off and defend their historic record at home. And I was flat wrong. And that was not the advice that I passed off to my friend. What I did was I read the game preview from Mike, who said, oh, it's going to be 27-23 Battlehawks, and thought, okay, well, I'll pass that along instead, because Mike really, really knows this team and he knows all the matchups. And not saying I don't do my homework too, but Mike is, a savant when it comes to that. So of course I'm going to pass that along, but that's literally just reading an article. There's no like insider person for this information. And the only people who are going to seek that out, like you said, are the people who really care about the betting aspect of it, and those are few and far between. It's not the general audience, but ESPN talks about it like it's the general audience.
No, and like I said, I'm turned off because I don't bet on any of this. If I'm Gemini here, you can tell they're promoting. I mean, it's not even, it's just like they don't have enough stuff to talk about in a 3-hour game, right? They don't have enough stuff to talk about. So it's a crutch, and you revert back to it. Like, oh, it's the over. Like, and then, like, we had the, where was it, Abdul here? Like, especially when like it's on the screen the whole time. Like, I don't need you to tell me what the over under is because it's on the scoreboard the entire game. I remember when that was like a big deal back when the XFL 2020 did it. Like, it's commonplace now. Jacob, your question about head coaches we'll do at the end, because I think that's a good one to get at the end of the stream here. I have it started. Let's go back here. Well, I want to just make sure I have the order right. So the first game, well, I guess these were the simulcast games. Do you want to talk about San Antonio or do you want to talk about Birmingham first?
I know, because they were both at the same time. Let's go ahead and talk about Birmingham and Houston. Just get out of the way.
Yeah. I mean, we knew this, right?
Look, Adrian Martinez is the spark plug. You got to keep this guy in here. This whole two-head. How do you like the UFL putting out their tweet a few days ago saying, wow, they got this two-headed monster, Matt Corral and Adrian Martinez. And I'm thinking, what two-headed monster? I mean, there's really one head that's really spearheading this entire offensive juggernaut that the Birmingham Stallions are, and it's Adrian Martinez. I mean, this guy is electric with the ball. My God, he is so quick. I cannot believe how much of a threat he is on the ground, because he's just so much more faster than some of the other players. You see him in the open field, and he is just quick. This is going to sound like a really funny analogy for your audience, but Adrian Martinez is the Trey Ford of the UFL. And I say this not lightly, because here's why. Trey Ford, fantastic athlete, amazing running ability, good arm, has shown a lot of propensity to uplift an entire offense when he's in the game. And yet the coaching staff, Chris Jones namely, refuses to play him for whatever reason. And that's a whole conversation for another season. We'll get into plenty this year. Same thing with Adrian Martinez. He is obviously giving this team an entire spark. I mean, you can't defend every blade of grass against him. You're trying to, and it's really difficult because he can throw, he can run, he can do a lot of different things. You can run RPO with him. You could run that like wishbone set that they do in the backfield with 3 running backs. You can do all kinds of things with him and under center. But, Skip Holtz is really determined to put Matt Corral in there and give him tape, and I respect that. But Matt Corral has just not gotten it done in the red zone, and I think it would be a detriment to this team to continue the platoon because Adrian Martinez just makes this offense hum, and they make them dangerous, and they make them lethal, and they make them look like the scariest team on the planet. And I just don't really want to see that be jeopardized just for the fact of, well, we got to put in our other guy and continue to give him opportunities. And look, this whole league is about opportunities. Of course, you want players to get all kinds of opportunities. I'm not saying that I don't want them to, but when there's just such a disparity in terms of the performances of the offense, when there's one guy in there versus the other guy, I mean, I would just continue to roll with that. I mean, St. Louis isn't sitting here being like, well, let's throw in Manny Wilkins and just see how AJ feels about that a couple of plays. Like that would not go well.
Give him some tape. He needs tape. Let's give Manny some reps here. No, you're trying to win.
Yeah, you're trying to win. Exactly. You're trying to win and you're trying to dominate. And that's what Birmingham.
Well, are you trying to win? Are you trying to win or are you trying to hit the over?
Oh, well, I mean, if Corral's in there, the over's not going to hit. I'm just going to tell you that right now. But you can start putting that bet in immediately. You can cash that ticket. Look, this Birmingham team just has everything they need. CJ Marable's great, obviously. Ricky Pearson's been really good. He started to come on in the season. Anything they really do on offense. Jay Sternberger is just probably the best tight end in this league. There were a couple of candidates, but Sternberger has just been awesome in the passing game. And that touchdown pass that Martinez had to him was beautiful. The place, the touch on that was amazing. So, I mean, this was just going to be a romp from the beginning. The Roughnecks never had a prayer.
Just speaking of the trade forward, if you're into this now, if you've gotten into all this UFL stuff, CFL's coming soon. I was just like, we're going to have a 2-week overlap, and then we're going to be in. It's a lot of fun because it's just like this. There's 9 teams, but it's really 8. It's 4 games every week. It's really fun, really manageable to follow, right? Thursday through Sunday a lot, especially during the summer before we get into the NFL. Really fun. So just, if you've never tried the CFL, we'll be talking about it on here. Andy will be on. I know we'll get Hussey back on and hopefully Evan if his schedule, but really fun to kind of get to all that stuff. I know the thing with Birmingham here, and losing Jamar, not even losing Jamar, right? Kind of injured and then losing his spot, whatever. Like, it's really like that Jesse Pinkman meme and Breaking Bad. Like, how does he keep getting away with this? Like, how does Skip Holtz now? And now, he almost has 2 quarterbacks, but like you said, Adrian Martinez, and they're like, again, here you go, Magoo and Jamar, and they're like all of this and navigating. Is that a testament to him? Is that a testament to the scouting there? And was Zach Martin? Who's the guy's name? Zach the kid.
Zach Potter.
Is it Zach Potter? What is it about Birmingham that allows them just it's without a hiccup here?
I think that's the thing. Zach Potter has done an incredible job of continuing to stockpile this team with talent in the trenches, in the perimeter, and at quarterback. Adrian Martinez is the guy you've watched, at Nebraska have incredible rushing days. But you knew he wasn't going to be an NFL quarterback. Now, he believes he's going to be an NFL quarterback. From a scouting perspective, that wasn't really the grade on him. But this is a chance for him to improve his tape and really improve his game and maybe make himself more enviable from some of these NFL teams. And Birmingham really gives him the chance to do that. But look, I think it's not only the scouting, it's also Skip Holtz. Skip Holtz is kind of running into that territory that Joe Gibbs did with the Washington Redskins, where he won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks, which is an incredible feat. It really is. It's so hard to win with a different signal caller. It really is. And for him to do it 3 years in a row, first you have Jamar Smith and Alex Magoo, who's backing him up, who isn't developed enough as a passer. Last year, Magoo comes in for an injured Jamar Smith, is incredible, wins the MVP award, and is just outright the best player in the league. And now this year, you're kind of experimenting. You're saying, all right, well, I don't really need Jamar Smith. Maybe I got something in Matt Corral or something in Adrian Martinez, and it seems to be Martinez now. He's a bit of a quarterback whisperer, and he's so good at not only knowing what he wants, but also being able to control the people around him as far as their emotions, and also, or not control, but be able to manage them, I should say, and being able to keep that in line the entire time. It's so hard when you have so many talented players who want to play and they want to be in there. They want to be able to contribute. But at the end of the day, as a coach, you got to decide, look, this is what's best for the team and we need to win. And this is how we're going to win. And that is such a testament to him. I am just blown away that it's been so successful. And honestly, there's got to be like a college that's going to call Skip Holtz at some point, right? There's got to be some team that sees this and realizes, man, he's really good. I mean, he was good at Louisiana Tech, but he's clearly hit another level in this league.
Yeah, what does it tell you about the USFL that Skip Holtz ran circles around teams for 2 seasons and was still here in the UFL doing that? Anything else with this one? Let's get to the last one because I'm hitting the strip here in a little bit. Let's go here. So San Antonio continuing on here. I got this on here. I know Anthony Miller was at this game. I don't know how many people were in the press box for this one. What do you make about this?
I mean, this is basically the ambience of a morgue because the Arlington Renegades have been buried officially. I buried them last week. Well, this was just the service after the burial because this is pretty much the end of the Arlington Renegades season. Their defense is just not there. It really is not. And Quinn Dormady, good for him. I mean, he comes back and he's performed fairly well in the stead of Chase Garbers. Obviously, you got enough weapons there with the Brahmas, with someone like Elise Mack, for example, catching that touchdown over the middle and running it in. Jordan Lovett's really good. I mean, he's kind of come on for this team as far as a running back goes. You still have Stevenson. You still have a number of guys you could run the ball with. The Brahmas are solid. They're set. Like they have their identity. They play really good defense. They just seem to be, I mean, this is technically the real Houston Roughnecks in a lot of ways. It's just transferred over to San Antonio. So I'm not surprised that they're successful. And so it really speaks to the fact that they're able to keep pace with the Battlehawks. And now they're in a fight. They're in a fight to try and win this whole conference and maybe host the XFL Conference Championship game, which would be huge for them because they definitely don't want to go into the Battle Dome. No. So we'll see what happens there. But for Arlington, I mean, I can't pin this on Luis Perez. Poor guy's playing his heart out. I mean, you see him with his kids afterwards. You saw him hang his head at the end of the game, just so disappointed. I can't really pin this on him. I mean, he's trying his damnedest. He gets that touchdown pass to Jordan Payton to try and cut into the lead, but I just don't think he has the team this year. This is just a lost season for Bob Stoops and his staff. Really frustrating.
I don't know. I mean, Greg Parks was on this week as well with Rick talking about, Stoops just can't motivate the guys and maybe he should move on. Like, I mean, is it a Stoops issue? Is he need to hold the players more accountable at this point?
It's possible. I mean, he's had a couple of rough starts. I mean, remember he got off to a under 500 start in the original USFL or the original XFL, in 2020. In 2023, obviously they finished the regular season 4-6, but they catch fire and they win the whole thing. So kind of making up for that. And we all knew that there needed to be more consistent quarterback play for that team to win. This year, I mean, whatever these athletes have been allocated to, or whatever they lost, it's just not been there. And maybe, who knows? I mean, Stoops has said and expressed that he likes this kind of job because it's not as rigorous and as taxing as college football is. But who knows? Maybe he wants to coach elsewhere. Maybe he wants to coach at a smaller college, or maybe in high school, or which I don't think would happen, or maybe just goes back to the desk. I don't know, but it is deflating for him and the staff. It's just the fact that this team is 0-5. It should not be the case. I think they should at least have a couple of wins. And I mean, obviously that game against DC was so devastating for them from a mental standpoint. I just think like this team, as Anthony has written about before, is just so undisciplined. I mean, the penalties have piled up. They have uncharacteristic turnovers. They've just had a really rough go of it. And who knows? We'll see if the staff if Bob Stoops and the staff moves on. And really, that's really one of the biggest questions going into the offseason is, what happens to some of these staffs if they don't perform? What is the league? Does the league nudge them to kind of, seek other opportunities, or do they just get the benefit of the doubt?
Philip here. No, that's good. That curtails in. We have our conversation here at the end. I want to make sure we touch on. Philip here said my Roughnecks are out of it. I'm a Brahmas fan now. No, Philip, bus is full. You need you. I told you from the preseason. I said this year. Oh no, it's the Roughnecks. This isn't even. This is a zombie Roughnecks. This isn't even. Oh no, we don't care about that. We care about no. Philip, you have made your bed. And that's just it. That's just the rules of it. Question for you, and I want to get to Jacob's question here I have pinned before we get out of this. Dormady coming in, right? Obviously, the Chase Garber's injury. We've got Kevin Hogan here, and he was signed. Like, is Dormady doing enough? Is this our future here? Because I mean, this is I've been Brahmas the whole time. I'm like Philip here, so I mean, this is my team. Are we okay with that, or how do you feel about the quarterback situation for San Antonio?
Well, I mean, considering that Dormady almost won the job over Garbers, I think speaks to how much depth they had at that position, how okay they felt about making that decision. So yes, I absolutely feel confident enough with Dormady as far as being in the playoff race. I think they're set now, especially if they win against, as I said, if they win against DC next week, that's pretty much it. I mean, they've pretty much almost guaranteed themselves to be in the dance at the end of the regular season. But as far as do we expect something from Garbers, I know he obviously had a serious injury. I mean, in theory, he could come back at some point, but I don't know if you really want to bet on that. I think you just kind of roll with Dormady going forward. And I like Dormady. I liked what he brought to the table last year. I mean, that game against DC had 5 total touchdowns. He had like the 3 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing. He was incredible in that game. He had a really good game against Vegas last year as well. I think you roll with Dormady. I think again, the thing that I mentioned last week, he has the downfield passing game element that Garbers doesn't really rely on as much, but Garbers is more about quick accuracy, intermediate routes, screens. He's much more about keeping it all in front of him, which is fine. Like that works too. And that works in AJ Smith's offense. But as far as like getting the ball downfield, Dormady does a much better job of that. And he's much more aggressive. So we'll see if that aggression bites him in the butt in the end, but I don't think so. This offense, I think, should feel confident enough in what they're doing to roll with him going forward.
Philip here. I'm still diehard Roughnecks. Just cheering San Antonio. I'm just, maybe you can be in the short bus in the back. We'll be us full-time bandwagoners will be there, and then we'll troll you along. Real quick, looking ahead here. So next week, and like I said, try to get Mike Mitchell on if I get back, and Mike's, we'll try to get that scheduled for Thursday for the Friday episode. Birmingham going into Memphis. Could be a little bit of a bloodbath there. Houston going into St. Louis. Could be a little bit of a bloodbath there. The Renegades versus the Panthers. I expect the Panthers to take care of business there. I mean, not that they have a home field advantage. And then, like you said, the San Antonio. I mean, does DC drop 2 at home? I don't know. This is exciting. What do you think about Week 6?
Yeah, I mean, the clear matchup you look for here is Brahmas and Defenders because, again, the Brahmas could end pretty much any hopes that the DC makes the playoffs if they are able to win in Audi Field. I mean, that would be pretty shocking to have 2 straight home losses after being 10-0 and having such a staunch home field advantage of your DC, but very possible. Could happen. And this Brahmas team, I think, can do it on offense. DC has not shown to be very good on defense. It's very possible that is going to be what transpires next week. As far as all these other matchups go, I mean, you're just kind of hoping that you don't get upset. I mean, if you're the Stallions, you really want to be dropping one of the Showboats. I don't think they will. I still have a lot of confidence that they're still playing Adrian Martinez. Hell, even if they play Matt Corral, I think they'd still be fine because Troy Williams and this offense for the Showboats, despite having certain skill position players that I really like Darius Victor and Jonathan Adams, I just don't think they're going to have enough firepower at home in front of a pretty meh crowd as far as it goes. As far as the number goes, it's going to be 7,000 plus probably again. And then other than that, I mean, a lot of these matchups are just pretty much favorite versus not favorite, in terms of just disparity as far as who's going to be what. I mean, Houston, I mean, you're walking into the Battle Dome to get sacrificed. I'm sorry. Like that's a rough matchup, but you're basically walking into a trap. It's not going to, or not even a trap. You actually know it's a death trap. It's what's going to happen.
Comment here. We have Judge Jackson. Yeah, he's the I don't make the standings, so they haven't updated them for today. We're live here. I don't have it updated here with all this stuff, so we do the best we can on here. I don't run the UFL website, but yeah, I don't know. I think, I mean, if you want to bet the overs here, if you want to bet the favorites, John Lewis here says, good luck in Vegas. Hope you hit the over. Yeah, I think you're pretty safe picking the chalk picks next week for all this stuff. I don't know. I mean, to me, the Defenders is just such a disappointment this season, I think, compared to any of the teams. I think Arlington caught fire at the end of last year. I don't know if we expected their repeat that, but I don't know. Is the Defenders, is that your biggest kind of disappointment this season?
I suppose so. I was not terribly surprised that they had a rougher start because they lost so much talent last season. I know Mike Mitchell kind of did a good job of briefing us on that, maybe to a fan that maybe follows it a little bit more casually. It is a bit surprising, and I understand why. I mean, you go 9-1, and now you're starting off 2-3, and you're losing home games. I mean, that's quite a drop off, but it is disappointing in terms of that's one of your signature markets, and they're not playing that well. But other than that, anyone who's else is disappointing. I mean, I'm actually really disappointed in Arlington. I thought Arlington would at least have a few wins by now, and it's sort of demoralizing to know that they've played so undisciplined and they've been just unable to get it done at the end of games. I'm really disappointed in them, honestly, and especially when they got run over by the Stallions at home that first week. I expected a lot more out of them. That's kind of, for me, the most disappointing team this season so far.
Yeah, and then just looking at the times here, yeah, we have a noon, so 9 a.m. Pacific, a noon on Saturday Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, and then Sunday afternoon, and then, no real primetime games. I wonder what they're scheduling around next week. I don't think there's, anything crazy going on. Maybe I'm missing that. I know the Mariners are in Houston at night, so that'll be better for me to watch that. But I know, odd kind of timings next week, a lot of early games.
Yeah, unless there's something going on Cinco de Mayo weekend, I'm not really sure. But there's going to be events going forward. There'll be, I know obviously NBA playoffs are still in play here. Of course, they had to work around the NFL draft.
It's the Derby. It's the Derby. That's why the
Derby.
John. See, that's why we got John Lewis. I like having a side producer here. Yes. Okay. The Derby. Well, hey, remember last year we scheduled alongside that and got whatever it was, the one good rating the USFL had all season.
Well, the problem is that was NBC, so that's not going to cross over this time. That's your one bugaboo there.
But again, so that's presumably they're at least scheduling around that to not be same by same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe so. Also, I just wanted to point out one comment earlier. Somebody was mentioning about how San Antonio is the leader of the conference. That's true. One really important matchup is going to be coming up at the very end of the regular season, week 10. San Antonio goes to St. Louis. That could decide who hosts the championship game at the end of the season. So for both teams, they need to keep winning and keeping pace with one another right now. For San Antonio, you want to keep that edge. And same with St. Louis, obviously. But the deciding factor may very well come down to that week 10 game for both of these teams. So, look, just the message for both of them is take care of business. Battlehawks, take care of business against the Roughnecks. Don't play around too much. And then San Antonio, you're going to the Michigan Panthers, you're going to the DC Defenders, which is a wounded team, and you should probably win, but I would not be surprised if DC comes out with a little bit more fire in this game. So you're going to see maybe a bit of a rougher matchup there. So for the Battlehawks, they could potentially end up after this weekend being ahead in the conference. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, here Gemini says Arlington's making us look bad for XFL teams. That only really matters like on the interwebs. They're not even. Adrian Martinez wasn't the Birmingham quarterback last year. Like it doesn't. I don't know. Anyone that actually watches it knows that Arlington winning was pretty remarkable, as is. Like I was at the game. Andy and I were at the game. Like I don't really know how DC lost that game. So the last question we had here, and I've had it pinned. Jacob wanted to talk about this. Do you think there'd be a head coaching overhaul for the UFL offseason? It seems like half of them are collecting paychecks or ain't up to it. Part of that to keep in mind is you're going to be seeing the XFL coaches go to more of a USFL salary, right? That's why Hines Ward dropped out this year, is he didn't want to do one more year and then get reduced because XFL coaches are getting paid more. And if you listen to Rick Saratella, that may or may not be a good thing. But, I don't know. Does Bob Stoops want to? I know Bob Stoops likes this time of year and all that, but does he want to coach at a reduced salary? Because all of the XFL coaches will be taking pay cuts next year going into that. Regardless of that, do you think any of these teams are performing bad enough that you think they need to get rid of anyone besides? I don't know. Is Curtis Johnson on the chopping block?
He might be. This is 2 straight seasons, and the results have not been there for whatever version of the Houston team you want to call it, the Gamblers, the Roughnecks, or the Gamblenecks. So they haven't really been able to perform correctly. We'll see about Bob Stoops. Maybe he sticks around, but again, as you said, the pay cut is certainly something that's significant. And keep an eye on that for San Antonio too, with Wade Phillips and that staff. That might be something that's untenable for them as well. But for St. Louis, Anthony Beck, I think, loves this job. I think he loves being here, and I think he's going to stay at least for a little bit. Skip Holtz again. Skip Holtz could easily get hired away because I think someone could pluck him and give him a really good position or a good coaching job, but that's up to him. I mean, Mike Nolan, someone like Mike Nolan, is he just going to hang around for a while and just kind of cruise with this? Kind of like how Jeff Fisher was. And, even Jeff Fisher eventually left. So the same thing with, Kevin Sumlin. It really depends. I think you're going to see a little bit of a shakeup. Probably, I would guess. I mean, you might lose 2 or 3 head coaches, but it depends on the motivation. Like you said, the money is a big part of it. It really depends on what they're trying to get out of this league and what they're trying to get out going forward after this league, if they can use it as a billboard for them to get better opportunities.
Yeah, I think the salary discrepancy is going to be more at play next season in terms of some of these coaches getting let out than anything else. Vincent here as we wind up, 10,000 Ford Field next Saturday. Vicente, if they get 12,000 people in the Ford Field, DM me, I will mail you an authentic Spring League practice squad jersey. So that is how confident I am that they are not, but yay, maybe they do. Hey, maybe Michigan, the 750,000 that was at the draft, 750,000 people were to watch Roger Goodell read, like insane numbers for the draft, but they can't get 6,000 into Ford Field.
You mean the whole weekend? Because I know the first night was okay. Because the first night
I saw today attendance was 750. Yes, for the weekend. But yeah, the one night it was $250,000, right? 250,000.
First night was 275,000 people, and they had to close off the gates like an hour before because people were just trying to flow in, and they were overwhelmed. Like it was an insane number of people to watch.
Go for it. Sorry.
No, it was an insane number of people to watch Caleb Williams and all those other people get picked. It's kind of insane.
Maybe Ford Field's just closing the gates. We can't handle it. It's too many people. We can't handle that. Appreciate it. I'm going to get out of here. Going to go track down some food. Appreciate Andy making time on Sunday. Appreciate all of you guys checking it out. Hopefully, at least it won't be Tuesday. Maybe we get a little bit more legs out of this. I know we like having the TV ratings to talk about, but we got to talk about attendance and everything else. Like I said, hopefully Mike next week. Maybe we'll get Tim Capper talking Arena Football. I'll reach out to him. I get back Wednesday night, so we'll figure all that stuff out. Appreciate it. Yeah, John, great show. Go check out John's stuff. John did a fun vlog. I watched his Battlehawks vlog. That was fun. And then I'm sure John will have some more get rid of the Michigan Panthers USFL, which I don't know why I am like Mr. Negative USFL when John's like, the USFL has a Michigan Panthers problem. Like, hey, I think he's the real hater. So appreciate it. Andy, anything else?
No, Reed, go enjoy yourself. Seriously, go have fun.
Yeah. Well, I got not that many hours. 7 a.m. tomorrow, work's coming. So appreciate it. We'll see you guys next time. Cheers.